Hello everyone, my name is Rajni. Welcome to PIB Weekly Analysis at Drishti IAS. In today's session, we are going to discuss some of the most important pieces of news from 22nd of June to 28th of June. Let's get started. The first piece of news that we have is Ministry of Rural Development launches AI-enabled Rural Internal Audit Portal, a first-of-its-kind digital platform for improving transparency, accountability, and technology-driven governance in rural development programs. But the first thing that you should notice here is it is an audit portal, which means it will be auditing. Auditing what? Rural development programs. It will be auditing rural development programs. And it is AI enabled, which means it is a digital platform. And this is the first of its kind digital platform. What are the benefits of it being AI enabled or digital platform? First is it improves transparency, which means whatever money is spent in rural development programs can be easily tracked to ensure transparency. Second, accountability. If there are any delays or misuse, the person accountable, the person responsible can be held accountable for it, right? Next, it ensures efficiency. We know whenever we include technology, efficiency is increased. And at the same time, it is technology-driven governance, which means monitoring becomes very easy. So it ensures good governance. Right? It ensures good governance. Now, because this is digital platform, AI-enabled digital platform, it replaces the previously used paper-based audit system. It uses AI for risk assessment, predictive analytics, and decision-making. What does that mean? Let's say in a program, in a rural development program, there are risks involved or there are chances of failure. Now, AI can predict that beforehand, and the officers can make better decisions about that program. It enables real-time monitoring, and it is developed with National Informatics Center with secure digital infrastructure. It is also recognized by CGA, which is Controller General of Accounts, as model platform for wider government adoption. Of course, it is a model platform. Why? Because it ensures all these things, all the shortcomings which were there earlier, right? The next piece of news that we have is India launched the NCORD Drug Control Vision 2026-29 to strengthen the fight against narcotics, treating drug trafficking as an internal security threat linked to organized crime, narco-terrorism, and darknet or crypto networks. As the heading itself, I'm sure you have guessed it, it is about controlling drugs, right? It is about fighting against narcotics. And there's a very specific strategy that has been given here, which is detect, disrupt, and destroy. What is this detect, disrupt, and destroy? Detect what? Identifying or detecting drug networks, right? Identifying or detecting drug networks using intelligence and surveillance. Disrupt means break something, right? So breaking supply chain and financial links, and destroying, finally completely dismantling the cartels, destroying the cartels. At the same time, it also gives 4-pillar roadmap, which is enforcement, synthetic drug control, rehabilitation, and capacity building, which means that stopping these drugs from at the source itself, right? Second, the synthetic drugs or chemical drugs that are synthesized like meth, controlling them. Rehabilitation, meaning it doesn't just talk about punishment, it also talks about recovery. And capacity building, along with stricter action, faster trials, and whatever drugs are seized, they will be destroyed completely. So these are the steps that have been given to fight narcotics, and it actually treats drug trafficking as internal security threat. The next piece of news that we have is Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared an article stating that as India takes over BRICS Chairship 2026, it wants to place the Global South at center of future global energy system. Now, the first thing that should come in your mind is, what is Global South? Now, we are not talking about the geographical location here. Global South countries are the countries which are developing countries or less economically developed countries. They come under Global South. Now, what here has been emphasized is that these Global South, or the countries, these developing countries or less economically developed countries, should also get fair chance at global energy system. This global energy system should be fair and inclusive. It should help everyone, right? Not just the privileged. So the first thing it talks about is secure. Secure means stable energy supply. Secure is stable energy supply. Second is resilient. That means it is, if there is any risks involved, it can withstand that also. For example, in case of wars or in case of price hikes or price rise, it can handle shocks easily and still is available for everyone. Next is equitable. Equitable means even the developing countries, or like we talked about, the less economically developed countries have a fair chance at getting these, right? And finally is sustainable. Sustainable is the shift towards clean and green energy. So it talks about these things. Next is India's Department of Atomic Energy, DAE, has launched the world's first nuclear-based hydrogen production facility at Kalpakkam using the copper-chlorine thermochemical cycle and heat from the fast breeder test reactor. Okay, so everything you need to know is right here in these lines. Let me explain them. In our last session, I cannot remember if it was PIB or in one of my sessions, I explained how green hydrogen is produced. So that's what they have explained here first. So what we are doing is, from fast breeder test reactor, in fast breeder test reactor, nuclear fission reaction is used. Now listen to me very, very carefully, because if you lose your attention even for a few seconds, you will miss out on a lot of things here. It is very information loaded. So in fast breeder test reactor, nuclear fission reaction happens. Now what is nuclear fission? So there are two kinds of reactions, nuclear fusion and nuclear fission reaction. Fusion, as the name suggests, it fuses or joins something. So when hydrogen and hydrogen join to make helium, that is smaller nuclei join to make a larger nucleus, that is called fusion reaction, which happens in sun. This is exactly opposite of fusion reaction, meaning here a large unstable nuclei or nucleus will break apart into smaller nuclei. So like uranium-235, right? This is relatively very large unstable nucleus. This will break into smaller nuclei, and in this process tremendous amount of energy is released, tremendous amount of heat is released, right? Heat is a form of energy. Now that we know that fast breeder test reactor uses nuclear fission, so here a lot of heat, tremendous amount of heat is released. All right, we have step number one. Second, in this heat, copper-chlorine thermochemical cycle begins. So there is already heat, and then here copper and chlorine. There is a reaction chain that begins here of copper and chlorine. Now that we have environment setup of heat and copper-chlorine reaction chain, in this water is introduced, right? Now water is H2O. Because of this environment of extreme high heat and copper-chlorine reaction chain, it breaks apart into two pieces, which is hydrogen and oxygen. This hydrogen is green hydrogen. Why is it green hydrogen? Because in this entire process, I have not used fossil fuels at any point, which means there will not be any carbon footprint here, right? Because of this, this is clean hydrogen or green hydrogen. This is clean fuel. I can call it green hydrogen. Now, that's what they have explained. This is the first nuclear-based hydrogen production. Why first nuclear-based hydrogen production? Because we have seen from fast breeder test reactor, a lot of heat is released due to nuclear fission, and then there is a middle chain where copper-chlorine reaction chain starts, and then water is introduced, and then it breaks apart into two parts, and that's how we get hydrogen. Now the question arises, if I just wanted heat for water to break, why not just heat water? The reason being, water is a very stable compound and normal heat is not sufficient. Just imagine we have gotten the heat from nuclear fission reaction, which means this is tremendous heat, a lot of heat, right? We cannot get this much heat from simply boiling the water or heating the water. All right, so this is the first nuclear. Now this is what you need to remember. You have understood the process. This is the first nuclear-based hydrogen production facility at Kalpakkam, which uses copper-chlorine thermochemical cycle and the heat from fast breeder test reactor. All right. Next is Air SUVIDHA 2.0 for Ebola screening. All right. SUVIDHA 2.0 is a new digital health screening platform. Screening is where you try to identify something by screening it, right? So what are we trying to identify? Ebola virus. Now see, Ebola virus was first identified in 1976 near Ebola River, which is how it got its name. Ebola virus actually transmits from infected animal to humans, and then from humans to humans. It is highly infectious. So it transmits from animals to humans, animals especially fruit bat, and then from humans to humans. Now, any disease which transmits from animals to human is called zoonotic disease. Zoonotic disease, right? So Ebola is also a zoonotic disease. So it transmits from animals to human, and then from humans to humans, it's highly infectious when they come in close contact using blood or other body fluids, right? It has very high death rate. It has the similar symptoms of flu, which will be fever, diarrhea, vomiting, etc. It can cause brain hemorrhage. So basically, it can cause death, and its death chances are very high. Its death rate is very high. So, of course, we need to screen it out so that if there is any pandemic-like situation, we can be prepared beforehand. We have seen what happened in COVID, during COVID. All right, next is Tiger Reintroduction National Workshop. All right, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change held a national workshop on tiger reintroduction at Sariska, Rajasthan to strengthen tiger conservation and ecosystem restoration. Okay, before I explain all of this, let's understand what this means. Tiger is an umbrella species. What is an umbrella species? Umbrella species is a species, if you try to protect this will end up protecting a lot of its species in its habitat. Let me explain. If you're trying to protect tigers, for example, for tigers to exist, you need a habitat of forest, water system, biodiversity, right? You also need prey animals like wild boars or deers because tiger is going to prey on them. So if you want to protect tiger, you would have to protect these prey animals also in quite a large number so that they can eat on them, they can prey on them and then survive. At the same time, you also need to protect the forest or water system and biodiversity in general around it. So whenever we are trying to protect tiger, we end up protecting everything in the habitat, which is why it is called an umbrella species. Second, Sariska success story. Now, what is this? In Sariska Tiger Reserve, what happened was, few years back, the tiger was poached heavily, which is why the number was zero, actually, near to zero. So because tigers were poached heavily, then the tiger became extinct in that specific region, right? Now the tiger were reintroduced from different national park, Ranthambore National Park to be precise, Tiger Reserve to be precise. So they were introduced from Ranthambore Tiger Reserve, and after that, now the number is around 56. So because tigers in general can exist, but they vanished or became extinct in Sariska region only, this is called local extinction, right? Because of poaching. Poaching is illegal hunting or trading of wild animals. Now, this model is globally recognized model. This is a globally successful model that if in any region a particular animal is extinct, we can introduce from some other region where their healthy population exists, and then it is seen that after some time the local extinction it vanishes. So the tigers numbers usually increases, or any animals number would increase, as has been seen. All right. Now, in India also, this tiger reserve expanded from 46 to 58. Now we have 58, which is global target. Now we have met the global target of doubling tiger population in India. Now I told you about Sariska's success story, but for this there is a very important component that comes into play, which is community participation. Now, as I told you that here the tigers became extinct because of poaching, which means illegal hunting and illegal trading. So unless community is participating, community is helping, this could not become a success. Because community participated, this became a success in both Sariska and Panna, but it failed in Satkosia because of local resistance. Because the community did not participate well, it failed in the other regions. Now, in this model, there are scientific methods which are used. What scientific methods? First, habitat restoration. As I told you, if you want to restore tiger number, which means if you want to protect tigers, you have to protect the entire habitat around it. If it is destroyed or damaged, you have to first restore that. Second is prey augmentation. Prey is the animals that these would hunt on, like deer or wild boar, right? So their number also has to be increased, because if their number is limited, only limited tigers can exist. It's like if there is no food, not a lot of people will exist, right? Not a lot of people will survive. So this is like a food for them. So prey augmentation was done. Augmentation is increase in number. Third was landscape connectivity. Different forests were connected using corridors so that their movement can be ensured, free movement can be ensured. And source sink management, which means source is the place where population is healthy, and sink is a place where population is weak or is becoming extinct. So tiger population from the healthy reserves to the reserves where the population was weak or becoming extinct, this was done. This is source sink management, right? Next is National Biodiversity Authority releases SOP for identification of threatened species. All right. First of all, the first question that should come to your mind is, what are threatened species? Now, in section 38, under section 38, threatened species can be officially notified, and this, once you notify that these species have become threatened, then their conservation can start, right? Now, what are threatened species? There are 3 species in IUCN list, which is vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. You have to tell me the difference between these: vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. These are collectively called threatened species. So the important point here is, you have to remember, under section 38 of Biological Diversity Act 2002, you can notify officially about these threatened species so that their conservation can begin. The next snippet of news that we have is VOC Port Authority reduces carbon emission by 45%. So VO Chidambaram Port Authority has just now become a model for green maritime development. What does that mean? See, wherever you see the word green in any development process or progress process, you should keep in mind that this is clean fuel that has been used. Carbon emission has been reduced. So they have achieved 45% carbon emission reduction, and they are meeting 94% of their energy needs using renewable sources of energy, right? Not using fossil fuels or carbon-based energies. So this is important because this is India's first green hydrogen project at major port. You have to tell me, where is this port? It received Scope 2 emission-free certification. What is Scope 2? So Scope 1 is when there is direct emission. For example, when you use vehicles, the carbon emission is high. That is Scope 1. Scope 2 is indirect emission. So for example, when you outsource electricity, because of that, if there is carbon emission, that is Scope 2 emission. So they have gotten Scope 2 emission-free certification, which means they are getting their electricity needs met using renewable source of energy, right? The third piece of news here is they also launched Port GPT, which is an AI-based platform for smarter port operations. All right. The next piece of news is, index of 8 core industries. Now, before I tell you about this, it's important to know what are these 8 core industries and which industries are we calling 8 core industries. So 8 core industries are the basic industries on which Indian economy depends. Indian economy and industrial production depends, which is the backbone of industrial production and Indian economy. Okay. Now, as the name suggests, they are 8 in number. and you must remember these. You have to remember what are these 8 industries that we are talking about. And how would you remember these? How would you remember the 8 industries? Now you can make your own mnemonics, but how I like to remember it is through a little story that I have in mind, which is coal, crude oil, and electricity. Right? Coal, crude oil, electricity naturally run. What are these important for? These are important for factories. So naturally run factories. Which factories? Steel and cement factories. Let me repeat this. Coal, crude oil, and electricity naturally run factories. Which factories? Steel and cement factories. If you remember this, now you can remember all the 8 core industries. So coal stands for coal, crude oil is crude oil, naturally is here, naturally is natural gas. I also used electricity, so that would be electricity. I said naturally run. Run, R stands for refinery products. Factories, F stands for fertilizers. And what kind of factories? Steel and cement. That's how you remember all the 8 core industries. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This you must know. What are the 8 core industries? Okay. So the piece of news says that index of 8 core industries grew by 0.5% in May 2026. This indicates slow industrial growth. Not a very good news for us. But in any case, from this piece of news, what actually is the most important part is knowing what 8 core industries are, what is the definition, why are we calling them 8 core industries, and which of them are 8 core industries. Okay. All right. And amongst these, highest growth is there in electricity, which is 8.7%, in cement, which is 8.4%, and in steel, which is 5%. And there are other industries where there are decline, like coal, refinery products, natural gas, crude oil, and fertilizers. Next piece of news we have is India critical mineral mission. Okay, so first question that arises is, what are critical minerals? Critical minerals are strategically important minerals that are important for technology and national security both. But these are vulnerable. Why? Because very few countries make them, like China. Now what India is doing is, India has auctioned 10 new critical mineral blocks. Now these are the areas you can understand where they have given permission to industries to mine so that we can have our own critical minerals, right? So that we don't have to depend on others. We can speed up this process. So there are 10 new critical mineral blocks. In the 7th tranche this was the 7th time that this was done. And total until now, 56 blocks have been auctioned. And these auctions, this is actually not that important. What is important is, what is critical mineral, and why are we doing this? We are doing this so that we can reduce our dependence on other countries, right, for critical minerals. What are critical minerals? They can be lithium, or you must have heard about rare earth elements. Very, very important for your examination point of view. Rare earth elements. Okay. The next is National Agriculture Cooperative Marketing Federation of India, which is NAFED, launches NAFEX.in. Okay, so there are few initiatives that have been launched by NAFED, which is, first is NAFEX.in, which is Digital Agriculture e-auction platform. So that means that farmers can trade, so sell and buy their agricultural produce here. There will be less interference of middleman, there will be more transparency because of this. You should know what exactly these are. So NAFEX.in is e-auction platform, right? Next is Drishti. Drishti, as the name suggests, it is vision, right? So what this does is, this monitors and manages initiatives. This keeps an eye on the initiative, on the management. Next is ERP, which is Enterprise Resource Planning. If there is proper planning, then there will be efficiency. This will ensure efficiency. So ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning System. And finally, there is Kalyan. Kalyan, as the name suggests, it is for welfare. Whose welfare? Farmers' Welfare Initiative, right? Next piece of news that we have is Netra AEW&C gets final operation clearance. Now, before I talk about it, let me give you a simple trick. Netra is eyes. So you can consider this as India's eye in sky. India's eye in sky. This is a very strong radar system on aircraft. What this does is, this provides long-range air surveillance, detection of enemy aircraft or missiles, because it is keeping an eye on everything. You can understand it like that. Battlefield command support and improved situational awareness, because it has eye on everything. So Netra AEW&C, which is Airborne Early Warning Control, it is developed by DRDO with Indian Air Force. DRDO with Indian Air Force. Now, this is something that you should remember. It has received final clearance, so now it is in function. That's what you have to understand from this. So Netra AEW&C is Airborne Early Warning Control. It is developed by DRDO and Indian Air Force. And this is like eye in the sky. It has a very strong radar system on an aircraft, which ensures long-range air surveillance, which ensures detection of enemy aircraft and missiles, and so on and so forth, right? Like we have discussed. The next piece of news that we have is Anemia Mukt Bharat Abhiyaan. Okay. Now, they have given operational guidelines on it. What is anemia? Anemia is when you have less hemoglobin or there is iron deficiency that causes anemia. Now, it is very severe. It is something that first, usually women have anemia, and second, it should be treated because it has a lot of problems that can cause in women and children. Okay. So Anemia Mukt Bharat Abhiyaan is an upgraded national program to accelerate anemia reduction. As I told you, this is for reducing anemia. And here we are focusing on women, children, adolescents, and vulnerable groups. Largely the vulnerable groups. Now in this Abhiyaan, or in this approach, earlier it was 6 into 6 into 6. Now it is 7 into 7 into 7. What does that mean? As you can see, there are 3 dimensions. The first dimension is beneficiary group. Who will it be benefiting? Like I told you, there were women, children, vulnerable groups. So there were 6 beneficiary groups. Then intervention, what kind of treatment or intervention is required? So there are 6 interventions that is there in this group. And then the final is institutional mechanisms. What kind of mechanism we are going to use to tackle anemia? So there were 6 into 6 into 6. Now there are 7 into 7 into 7, which means we have to know what one more dimension in each category has been added. The first is LBW babies, meaning low birth weight. The babies which are very low weight when they are born. So those babies are also included now. Hence, the beneficiary group has got one more. Second, what is the intervention that we are going for that has been added? That is nutritional intervention, eating right, treating anemia using food, right? Using nutrition. And the third is institutional mechanism, which means what kind of institutional mechanism have we added apart from all the 6 that were there earlier? So we have added digital monitoring here, right? So that we can keep an eye and increase efficiency. Next is upgraded T3 to T4 approach. What is T3 approach? T3 approach is test, treat, talk. First, there were only 3 approaches. Now one more has been added, which is track. So identify anemia, whoever has it. Second, treat. How to treat? Using medical intervention, telling them medicines, what all to do. Third, talk. Talk is the counseling. How can you keep it in check? Using nutrition, right? And finally is track. Now this also has been added so that we can track whether what we are doing until now, whether it is benefiting them or not. To follow up is track. This is for follow-up monitoring. All right. And if there is severe anemia, in that case, ferric carboxymaltose and iron sucrose can be used for severe anemia. Then there is digital tracking, which is also done under this using Janani and UWIN and AMB portal. AMB portal is Anemia Mukt Bharat portal. There is also focus on community engagement, which is Jan Bhagidari. So if you are asked about Anemia Mukt Bharat, you have to write all these points, right? Okay. Next is Aarogya Setu 2.0 Digital Health Initiative. So I know I've written a lot of it here. There's a lot of information here, but what exactly is important for you is Aarogya Setu app is one-stop personal health record. So basically it is like a digital diary for you where you can keep health records at one place, right? All your tests or whatever records you have of your health. So all of them can be kept here. And yeah, so this is an app, Aarogya Setu app, Aarogya Setu 2.0. It is a personalized one-stop health record app which has ABHA management, digital health records, and AI health insights, hospital payments, service discovery. Everything related to your health can be kept at one place in this app, that is Aarogya Setu 2.0. Right? There are other new platforms as well which you can read about, like Ayushman app, Ayushman Sarthi, which is a WhatsApp chatbot. Then there is National Health Claims Exchange and Unified Health Interface, e-Sushrut Clinic, right? Just in case some of these names have been given to you in the exam and they are asked what is it related with, right? So you should know these are all health apps. Next is GI tag, Rewa, Sundarja, mango export to UAE. Now this is I think the last piece of news that we have for today. First thing that you should know is what is GI tag. GI is geographical indication. This is given to products which have some specific quality and, very important, they are grown in a specific geographical area only. That's why they get geographical indication tag, GI tag. For example, Madhubani painting, right? So there is Rewa Sundarja mango, which also has GI tag, which is important here. That's all. Great. Now comes the last part where I will give you 2 prelims practice questions and both of which you will answer in the comment section. I really hope that you get these questions right. Let's look at the first question, which is, under Section 38 of Biological Diversity Act 2002, A. All species must be conserved equally. B. Government can declare species as threatened and restrict collection. C. Only animals can be declared threatened. D. Only forest departments decide threatened species. And the second question is the correct sequence of India's anti-drug strategy. We have talked about this in detail, so I really hope you get this right. A. Detect, destroy, disrupt. B. Disrupt, detect, destroy. C. Detect, disrupt, and destroy. And D. Destroy, detect, disrupt. So that's it for today's session. I really hope you enjoyed the lecture. Until next time, take care.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.